welcome back to my videos. If you saw the last video, you might think that spearfishing in Scotland is really easy and you can just jump in anywhere and catch fish. A lot of the places that I dived, I actually blanked and I didn't catch any fish. It was just rock, bit of kelp, sand, no fish. And I'm very limited as to where I can go because I'm shore diving and I need to park the van and all that stuff. So very few spots that I can dive, most of it was utter rubbish. In order to get seafood, I had to do a lot of foraging, and that is what this video is all going to be about. Huge quantities of shellfish are removed every year from Scottish waters by the commercial fishermen. This is done in a way that's far less sustainable than how us spearfishers get our food from the sea. Here we have velvet swimmer crabs, common lobsters and brown crabs. On the west coast they also get spiny lobsters and scallops, but there are also other commercially important things such as langoustine. I'm inside a wreck and I'm on the hunt for lobsters. There was a lobster there, but I just wasn't realistically going to catch it. And in a minute, I spot a really big, well, by tadpole fish standards, it was a really big tadpole fish, which I went and caught on the next dive. Here I'm going into a bit of the wreckage and I'm upside down. It's quite a confined space and you have to twist your body to be able to get to the lobster. So it's a bit awkward. Having good flexibility does help. Not that I have particularly good flexibility, but I still managed to get the lobster. It was too small, unfortunately, so he went back. A lot of the lobsters that you see you can't catch, or there won't be keepers. It's just the way it goes. But I must have seen over 10 lobsters in one dive session. I'm not stabbing the lobster with the spear. I'm trying to get the spear in behind the lobster to block off any further retreat and to leave the lobster back out the hole. A lobster hook would have been better because rubber bands under tension against sharp bits of metal and barnacles can snap your bands. It's good fun diving into wrecks and caves, and in this cave there was quite a few edible things. These are velvet swimmers. There was no fish, unfortunately, but there were a couple of lobsters. This one spooked in the torchlight and then it retreated into a bit of a gap, and the cave actually went back a fair way with lots of these little gaps on the side. And on the roof there was quite a lot of squat lobsters. Now, these squat lobsters are very fast, they're quite small, they can very easily take off and get into gaps and you can't catch them, so they're really good fun to try and catch. Obviously they're not very big, so there's not a huge amount of meat on them, but it's a really sweet meat and it's sweeter than the likes of velvet swimming crabs. So it's good fun. It's nice to have something different as well because I don't tend to see that many and that many big ones where I dive down at Portland. And while I was doing this, I actually spotted an octopus on a rock. The GoPro wasn't recording at the time, but I just grabbed it, and that was delicious.
But this is the lesser octopus, also known as the curled octopus. One of the things you can... It doesn't grow as big, this one, and it has a single row of suckers, whereas the common octopus has a double row of suckers. These are velvet swimmer crabs, and I've had a lot of interest about these and people who want to know more about them, so I'm going to break them down and show you how much meat you get out of 5 crabs.
This is what they look like in the water. Where to find them? On rocky reefs under the kelp, often hiding in the cracks and underneath rocks. How to catch them? You want to be pretty fast, as they are very fast and very pinchy. I like both hands free and I try and grab them as quickly as possible.
Let's get on with it and I'll show you how to break these down. This crab here is about 10 centimeters across the carapace. You can see it's a male, and this is perfect. This is what you're looking for. Got some nice claws on it, and they do have some nice claw meat. So what I do is I break off the claws, break off the legs, and I'll come back to the body in a second. But if we just have a look, you can see the legs here, quite a bit of meat in there. If you do that, you pull out the cartilage at the same time, so you hinge it and then pull it out. And you don't actually need any tools. Oh, no. Sometimes it comes out as one nice lump. And you can just crack them in half and then get the meat out. I like to cook these crabs. They only take a few minutes to cook, and then sit them on ice overnight, and then I have them cold. Really nice way to have them. Obviously people do have them in soups and all sorts of other things. There are other recipes and you can go and Google that. Right, now for the bodies. Come to the back, press up like that. Got my plate of carnage over here. These are the gills and all the other bits and bobs, get all that off. Now the tail I tend to lift up, break that off, and then there's often a load of mess in there. Lovely, break them in half. There's this very fine cartilage, oh bollocks, but you can see that you get these clumps of meat that come out. White meat, really sweet. All the meat's really sweet with these velvet swimmers, but you get these segments. I've totally fucked that one up. Right, let's try this one. It's never a problem when the camera's off. It's only when the camera's on. So there's different segments where these knuckles are. So try and break those off, and then you can. Yeah, it's not going to go to plan, but you can just slide out these chunks of meat. There we go, finally done. I have a plate of carnage, and then I have a beautiful plate of white meat, and it's a really sweet, really tasty meat. And there we go. I'm very happy with that.
Everywhere that I've been in the UK, I have found two things. One of them is seals, and the other thing is ghost pots. So on this wreck up on the east coast of Scotland, the rope had wrapped around the wreck and the pot had become a ghost pot. And I think I released about 6 or 7 brown crabs and a few velvet swimming crabs out of that pot. Ghost pots don't discriminate either on V-notch, buried, whether it's in size or not. They can do a huge amount of damage, and there's massive quantities of them out there. So if you do see them, please spend the time chopping them up, opening them up, doing what you can, but obviously make sure it's ghost fishing gear and leave the active fishing gear well alone.